What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review a limited edition Christmas EP by Three Doors Down. Basically, this project is called Where My Christmas Lives, and it came out in the late fall of 2009. So yeah, this is the next one in the series of Christmas albums I'm doing for the holiday 2024 as far as this pitch can happen with it. Now, the thing about this particular project is the thing about this particular project is I'm gonna have to do it more off of memory here because of the Santa hat. I don't feel like having to keep taking off the hat to listen to the album as far as this pitch is gonna happen. Having to switch back and forth to remember the songs I forgot. So I'm just gonna try to get through this particular one. It's not like I'm rushing through it, but it's just within the context of just having to do it more off of memory per se. But that's a good concept here. Is that this is a relatively excellent EP here to kind of get. But the thing about it is for the most part in particular, it's not so much like a Christmas project as much as it is more of just like an acoustic variation of like their 2008 album, self-titled Three Doors Down, as far as those pitches going to happen. So it does have at least one Christmas song, but I do feel like Three Doors Down's variation of Christmas is just a lot more like the standard evening dredge and just kind of 4 o'clock p.m., 6 o'clock p.m. commerce that is typical of Three Doors Down as far as those pitches going to happen. Just that standard dredge. If you like songs like Be Like That and some of those type of pitches, The Road I'm On, Here Without You, some of that just sunset gazing pitches like that, that's this basic album in a nutshell, which is a pretty excellent type fare. Once again, I don't remember Three Doors Down's 2008 album nearly as much just because it's been since like 2017, late 2016 as far as those pitches going to happen, but I look after it, I do at least kind of somewhat remember, like it's like when I reviewed Three Doors Down's greatest hits album from like back in the summer this year, I do remember the single It's Not My Time being on there, I want to say. But apart from that, I don't remember as many full bound songs. It seemed like they picked ones that were more stretchers. The thing about this particular album is just the fact that it has a lot of stretchers on here, just more personable. I mean, it's kind of dark, but not quite as brooding and not quite as affable in terms of like the dark personality of like The Better Life and Away from the Sun, which I look after those particular pitches that just nailed it better. I do feel like there's some melds here from like the more kind of modernized kind of get up and at 'em and just, suck it up type tone of like 17 days. And I'm guessing, I don't remember his full bound as I was not as, I was more adept in 2024 than I was back in 2017. So I don't know if I caught that relative modernization back in 2017 when I reviewed their 2008 album, but that might have had that same modernized type pitch. But at least to be able to say this was before like their 2011, 2016 albums, but it's just within the pitch as far as saying that some of that modernized type sound is on here in a modern sense, relative sense. But I mean, for the most part, this is a pretty swirling type project. I do like the acoustic type flair about it, but it's just the concept of saying that a lot of this on here just has like, once again, that 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock p.m. type dredge or just got done with work shift. Typical kind of Tuesday, Wednesday makeshift, just within the tone of not really doing much, not really anything close to kryptonite on here. A lot of this is just Christmas music that's just like, same shit, different day, that same sort of tone is within the pitch of just reporting to work, heading straight home, pitches like that, maybe turn on the news or football, something like that, relative type fare. Just standard report to the ball and chain as far as the chica that's in your life, and then this is a standard fare, just that routine kind of dredge. It's just kind of, it goes through the motions within the pitch behind it. I do like the tone. I mean, it's affable within a relative sense. Normally this would not be that compelling just because it kind of does feel like a half-ass kind of rendition of like Christmas music, but it's just the tone that their personality, the Three Doors Down's band's personality, is intoxicating enough to pull this off, just because they're just kind of like the sauntering kind of heartland and just kind of more countryside gazing, sunset gazing kind of heartland, kind of just typical evening dredge, like that particular appeal of this bar hopping and jukebox type music that you get just within that fare. But it's just within the tone as far as saying that it works to a certain degree, but it just the listless kind of dredge about it is good for the most part, but there's just not really too much spark in terms of much beyond just like the stretchers, I'd have to say, which I look after it when they do try to do some pep on here or something optimistic. For the most part, it kind of falls flat. Their tone just works better. It's just like the standard kind of sunset gazing kind of dredge that just has a little bit of moroseness, but I do like in certain senses, like they didn't really try any turn up songs in this particular product, which is this kind of thing. They didn't try turn up songs. There's not really, I mean, with it being acoustic, it's difficult to do a turn up kind of acoustic song, but I just look after within the tone. I just feel like when you get like peppy kind of acoustic, you have to really be able to nail it to be able to have that concept. It's just not something that Three Doors Down, it's just not something particularly that Three Doors Down kind of pulled off on this project. So I feel like songs more like, in the fashion of Be Like That and Here Without You just work better than other type songs as far as those type pitches kind of happen within the tone behind it. But yeah, there was at least one single off this project, so we'll get to that and then you'll just see what I'm talking about here. We'll talk about the rest of the sounds. The first single and only single off this EP was Where My Christmas Lives, which it is not very hammered in as far as the pitch kind of goes, that this is Christmas music. It's just kind of the concept that it's an interesting type pitch. Originally I would have thought, I mean, it would have been like within the factor, I wanted to review this within the pitch, and it's not like I'm saying it's bad because it's definitely going to get a relatively solid score here, but it's just kind of within the pitch that you're essentially getting like some acoustic boilers that just kind of, it's pretty similar to like Godsmack's The Other Side EP from 2004. Just, I mean, it works within a sense of just Three Doors Down being able to pull off acoustic just because they have the guitar skills to be able to pull that off just within the tone behind it. But when the matching of the song doesn't really go with like something affable, it just kind of makes it to where it's not quite as hitting. But for the most part, most of these production fares, minus just like a couple on here, just two of these on here have a relative kind of good taste about them, I'd say. But yeah, Where My Christmas Lives is the first single and the only single. This is like Glaze kind of Xmas bustling times, I'd have to say here. Just some general slag about that. Just kind of a marshy kind of end of work shift kind of sunset gazing kind of get here. And you're going to find that most of these songs on here, minus like the song Runaway, I would probably say is just like that typical, like once again, the concept of like 4 o'clock p.m., 6 o'clock p.m. sunset gazing, just within the pitch behind it. That standard makeshift of just like a golden or orange or pink sky, something that relative type tone, just that standard fare. So this being a Christmas song, I mean, it really, like, it's interesting that this would be their variation of what they feel within the Christmas vibe about it, because it's not to complain about that particular pitch, but it really does not have terribly, I mean, I think the noticeable changes from like the altitude of what they feel the holiday season kind of is not very much different from like a standard Three Doors Down type song. So it's just within the pitch behind it. Maybe there's some longing in there, but apart from that, this just feels like a typical kind of 5 o'clock p.m. type evening shift type music you can get from Three Doors Down just in general. It feels just like Be Like That or one of those type ones that's just within that acoustic type tone. But look, after it is dope to kind of get this one, just some good simmering typeness to be able to have within that. This good, nice acoustic type tone kind of get within that. Pretty serviceable and affable just within the pitch again, like that standard fare of just another Three Doors Down kind of hit and a secret song by them for most folks that may not commonly know about it, I have to say. So it works to that end. Now the acoustic version of that particular song, the thing about Where My Christmas Lives is just the fact that the original song is acoustic. It's just the fact that the rest of the band didn't seem to be as much as on the acoustic version of that song, which is the 8th song, is the what they label the acoustic version. But both versions of Where My Christmas Lives are actually acoustics. Just the 8th song, the acoustic, just doesn't have supposedly just more production work or instrumentation about it. So it's just within the tones. I don't recommend that one. But yeah, just be able to say out of the 8 songs on this particular product, I wound up recommending 5. So the 3 songs I don't recommend on here would just be It's the Only One You've Got, Runaway, and then Where My Christmas Lives, the acoustic version. So basically, Runaway was just a little bit more peppy a song I just didn't appreciate as much. This is what I was talking about with some of that more optimistic type acoustic that just didn't pull off the vibes as much, and it just kind of felt like a more modernized type pitch. Like, there are some ones on here that kind of do it better just within like the relative slag of Your Arms Feel Like Home, and then the relative kind of bittersweet pep of Let Me Be Myself. But Runaway just kind of had like acoustic licks on there that just had a little bit more this kind of spryness about them. Not to complain about spry, but just the concept. It just felt a little bit more. The pep behind it was just not as affable within the taste behind it. And then I didn't really like the messaging and the overall this composition of It's the Only One You've Got. This is like the more modernized Three Doors Down that was on 17 Days that I complained a bunch about back in February and earlier this year, some of those type pitches. Sometimes they have that particular fare of just having that more kind of, you got to tough it out and stick with it, and just kind of the more, you know, shit is rough, deal with it type tone just within the pitch behind it. Just hop up and, you know, if life kicks you down, get up and try again, some of that type tone. Just didn't really have the affable type pitch just within that fare. This is kind of more recycled within the pitch behind it. But I mean, it's not as if, like, I did like the instrumentation on that particular song. I just feel like the direction behind it, I kind of wish that they would have chosen, like, I don't remember as full bound like Three Doors Down from 2008, but maybe something like The Train. I know that there were other songs. They probably could have went with Citizen / Soldier or Train, one of those type of ones. I know there were at least a couple of singles angles and possibly even some other type ones that probably would have worked a little bit better. I'm glad that they went with It's Not My Time, but I kind of feel like they needed something. I definitely think a song like Kryptonite would have been an excellent type song to have gotten an acoustic version of, to something a little bit more lively. This is not a very step out type one. You would think within this particular dredge is a lot of longing on this project, just to be able to say this is a lot more typical kind of just the dredge of like, you know, that post grunge type wailing just within the pitch, just that dissonant kind of tone within it. But I look after, I do feel like the concept of maybe something of just stepping out to like a bar, having some good times, enjoying like a Friday, not something that just feels like it's like a million miles away just within the pitch, something within that relative type tone. Going out for a Friday night, some of those type pitches. I mean, I just think this particular EP, I like the acoustic dredge about this project, but it probably definitely needed something like Kryptonite on here. And I just question, I know they're trying to do acoustic versions of like their 2008 album, but it's disappointing that like in some senses it seems like Three Doors Down kind of avoided doing another song like Kryptonite in a lot of senses, and that continues to be one of their most popular songs just because of the overall club hop just appeal of it and just the overall personality. The disc was very affable and red hot on that particular one, but they just didn't. I mean, they have done, I want to say it in some fashions, other songs like it, but there's just nothing like that on here. And I definitely think it could have used like some sort of club hop or something within a night venue type socialness. But it's really this project is, I'm probably not going to give the social score of this project that highest score it has saved supposedly, but. Yeah, those are the songs I don't recommend. So I just didn't like the messaging if it's the only one you got. But talk about some of these ones on here that I do recommend. It's Not My Time is a nice one within that pitch. It's like a simmering kind of long work day commute to kind of get here. Just a grand kind of evening dredge, I would have to say. Just vintage kind of Three Doors Malaise within that pitch. Feels just like Away from the Sun, The Better Life, some of those type tones. Just their typical kind of post-grunge type fare just within that pitch. Just more acoustic variations of that. Just typical kind of 6:30, just got done with work, just the car traffic and just commute, just that slag of just the unwind as far as those pitch gonna happen, this typical kind of day. I mean, a lot of this music, like despite the fact that it's called My Christmas Lives, this just feels like something you could listen to June, July, August, some of those type fairs. I mean, it works for like October, November was just within the pitch. I mean, some of this does feel like autumn kind of dredge within it, but it's really interchangeable for the most part within that tone. So I look after it, just has a good pitch for that. Standard work shift dredge. I'd say Your Arms Feel Like Home is a nice one, as well as like a Welcome Home kind of unwind and dredgy relief to kind of get here to some typical kind of makeshift, I'd have to say, and just a personal kind of gem. So this one is like a more insular type one, more ruminating within a sense, just kind of within, it's like a more insular type one, just a personal type one that works pretty well. Just kind of up close, hits closer to home within those pitches as far as that particular kind of happens with it. It's a nice one to kind of get within those bobs when sometimes I'll complain about certain folks not being able to nail some of these. This is a good aspect of being able to see one of those type ones where it just is not, I mean, most of this album is pretty personal within that pitch, but just within the tone that this is something where it doesn't really have the intention of going out and having a wild Friday, Saturday, something like that, or Thursday, but just within the pitch of going home and just the appreciable of just being more homebound for a little bit as far as those pitches can happen. It's a good type tone. But probably the closest thing to the social aspect upon this particular product would be Pages. Now, this is like a brooding kind of vintage Three Doors Down from like their 2002 days. I definitely feel like there's some evening commerce. I'd have to say here is some evening commerce haze, and it's a good song to ruminate and smoke to just within that pitch, I'd have to suppose. Yeah, Pages is just kind of a sunset gazing type one just within the pitch, just having some extra time as far as this pitch can happen along with it. Just kind of typical ruminate type fare, just kind of one, a little bit more of like a serious type tone just within the pitch. Maybe errands are kind of pissing you off a bit, something within that relative type fare. Makeshift, just get down to the nitty gritty as far as those pitch can happen. Just, you know, typical stuff. Just got to get tasks taken care of to get things roped up as far as those pitch can happen. Just typical brooding as far as those pitch kind of go. Just some good type concepts. This is one of the ones where Three Doors Down's personality kind of shines through. This is just like their earlier days, where this is one that just kind of has the more kind of tone with their typical kind of smoke up and just kind of have that particular just glistening kind of charisma as far as those pitch can happen. Just good type one. And then Let Me Be Myself is a highlighted one as well. Now this is like some neighborhood saunter and like a wind down kind of flavoring. I'd say just grab a quick bite to eat and some bittersweet pep to kind of have here. This is kind of a touch bass type song just within the pitch behind it. I just look up at the tone. It's kind of the aspect of just kind of I feel like the aspect behind this is just kind of to emphasize just the concept of it being bittersweet just within the pitch behind it. Just kind of feels like it's been rough out there recently as far as those pitches kind of happen. This typical kind of evening slag just within the fair behind it. Just kind of makeshift haze just within the tone as far as that would particularly kind of happen just amongst that kind of tangent. But I just look after it. Typical kind of bad hair day type fair just within the pitch behind it. I look after it. But yeah, it's just some good type fair. Kind of get a lot of these. Do appreciate the aspects behind this. I would have to say, in terms of the songs I recommend on here, 5 out of 8, I would have to say just within the tone. I'm going to go ahead and give this EP like a solid 7 out of 10. I look within the pitch. It does have some good capabilities within it. I definitely look within the tone. I do like a lot of this on here, but I do feel like the aspect behind just the affability behind it. I mean, I know Three Doors Down can have a lot more spark, but it's just kind of within the thing about this product is this is like the usual glumness from Three Doors Down, which works pretty well. It's their typical fare that just pulls off the vibe like they usually do, but it's just kind of within the pitch that it just does not have much beyond just like the standard, just kind of, I mean, it's a bittersweet aspect within it, but it's just kind of within the concept that there's no like secondary or tertiary, there's no secondary or alternative type mode to kind of get here, and the whole concept just seems to be with the overlaying theme of just kind of like the concept of this hardship and this workshift dredge as far as those pitches kind of happen, which is just kind of the tone. This is dealing with, yeah, either work sucks or relationship, babe problems, something like that, just within the tone of that relative aspect, but it's just kind of the tone that there's not really any reprieve, any step out, something to kind of have like, yeah, I'm going to go out for a drink, hit up the homies, smoke up a little bit, something like that, just, you know, travel, some of that type fare, just the concept of this is basically like you're shot in the arm for Three Doors Down in like a typical kind of usual kind of Christmas season type fare. I mean, I will say it does feel like it would be the Christmas season, but it just doesn't positively kind of denote that. It just kind of assumes that like the Christmas season is the same as any other time of the year just within the pitch, which works to like a certain extent, but it's just kind of the concept that this is the basic tone that this is just evening dredge the whole way through. And that's just kind of the concept. It's just the basic premise about how that particular kind of goes. That's just the aspect behind it. So the social score I'll probably give within that tone. I'd probably say I'd give the social score like a 6.25 out of 10 because I feel like these songs are good enough within the pitch. I do think some of this evening dredge, if you're just kind of commuting around with your pals as far as those pitches going to happen, it at least has the ability to have something affable within the tone, but it just doesn't really have that spark. It's really unfortunate that, I mean, I think easily like a song like Loser, which was damn near like an acoustic song as well, probably could have been a pulled off type song to have kind of gotten on here. I don't know if the Three Doors Down album from 2008 had any bops on here as far as like this shot, as far as like social venue or night outing type fare, but it's just within the pitch that it just needs something with a little bit more liveliness. This is just like a lot of malaise just about it. I feel like these songs are relatively good, but apart from Pages and maybe like the relative kind of just typical kind of routine day dredge of just where my Christmas lives, that's about the closest concepts to something social within that aspect. I would almost say the social score probably needs something lower, but it's just within the pitch that this music is good within a sense. Works for bass, standard boo, that's just kind of the mainstay type chica as far as those pitches kind of happen, but it's just within the fare that it just goes through the motions. So that's this kind of thing. But I look after it. So in terms of the future, like Three Doors Down has been gone and has been absent since 2016. I want to say they've dropped like some singles or some pitches like that, but for the most part, they just have kind of had hardships. One of their band members unfortunately passed within the last several years as far as those pitches going to happen. They've got some new band members as far as those pitches going to happen, but it's just within the aspect that it's just been relatively quiet since about the mid 2010s as far as those pitches going to happen. It's almost the mid 2020s. So I just look after within the tone. This is like a nice secret type project here. Like I said, 7 is solid enough to get within that pitch. It's kind of their aspect of just like a standard dredge and like the Christmas type season as far as some acoustic type bops. Definitely a good acoustic type player. They have another acoustic EP and a live EP that I'm going to get to, but other than that, that's about for the most part what there is left at Three Doors Down. But this is a solid shot in the arm and it's worth getting as far as those pitches can happen, but just be prepared that it's not that super superbly social.